is up, guys? Welcome back to Flow State. It is me, Luke, and I am joined, as always, by my illustrious co-host, Adam. And today, or I guess for the last, 3 or 4 weeks, we've been in preparation for races because both me and Adam have got a bit of a habit of scheduling races for the same day, even though we're literally other sides of the globe. I'm not sure if you've noticed that, Adam, but we've finally had some races and we've got some performances to talk about. So yeah, but before we do that, look, Adam, I just want to say, I know we've been getting continuously some really good feedback and people are reaching out. And as always, I just want to start with kind of due diligence, saying thank you to everyone who's watching, listening, subscribing, following, all of that good stuff. And we even hit 100 followers on Spotify, which is a bit of a milestone. So thank you so much for that. And if you do continue to enjoy the podcast, enjoy watching us, listening to us, please feel free to continue commenting, following, sharing. It really does mean the world to us. So look, with that done, Adam, how are you, mate? I know we've both been in the wars last couple of days, but why don't you kick us off? How's things been, man?
Yeah, mate. Thanks a million for the introduction. As always, good to chat to you again. Things aren't too bad. We managed to race last weekend and I feel like I've recovered pretty quickly, but yeah, like you say, we've been in the wars, mate, which I'm sure we'll get into. But no, things are good, mate. The sun is shining all week this week in Ireland, and it has been absolutely beautiful. Granted, very cold, but I don't give a damn. It's when the sun's shining, you just can't help but be in a better mood. So it's been a lovely week so far. And yeah, overall things are great, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Same thing, bar the cold. It's been we've had, I mean, in Melbourne, they say that we've got kind of some of the worst weather in Australia because we're so far south. We're not actually that far from Antarctica in the grand scheme of things. But what ends up happening is when we get good weather, we get it really good. So even though we are officially not in summer anymore, we've been having like late 20s. It's like today was lovely. It's kind of like 28 and just sun all day. And yeah, it does make life better. And like, I know the weather maybe isn't the same in your case than it is in mine, but 100% when I used to live in the UK, those mornings when it was like maybe a little bit crisp, maybe a little bit frosty, but still sunny, makes all the difference. And it makes just getting up and being alive that little bit easier. So I feel it. But yeah, for me, pretty good. No complaints this week. So still ticking over. But yeah, I know maybe for the listeners, just to recap, you were this time last week when we spoke, you were very unsure if you'd even be racing in the first place. So why don't you kick us off by giving us a bit of a recap what happened? Because we left off on Friday evening, so maybe pick us up from there.
We did. So Friday evening was like, yeah, that was a few days before the race. So at that stage, I still didn't know if I was going to race. And I just didn't feel like my body could run at race pace. I could jog and things were actually okay on the jog, but you just know that running at the pace that you need to run in a race just mightn't have been feasible at that stage. But got out for a jog after our chat on Friday morning. I've just got my training log up on the screen here. Yep, 5.5 miles, 7-minute mile in, 40 minutes. I think I felt okay on this run, and then just rested Friday evening. Saturday morning, met the lads, Barry and Chuck here. Shout out to those boys. Met them for just a short jog on Saturday morning, and I remember just feeling pretty crap on Saturday morning. Like my legs just didn't feel great at all, and it's just like, I'm not too sure what to do here. But I finished that run with like a bit of a pickup just down the street towards my house, just like a 30-second kind of stride, just to sort of see if I could even move at those faster paces without feeling like my leg was going to fall off. No, I'm being dramatic, but it was fine. You know, I was able to do that, and I was like, okay, let's think about this and let's see what's happening. So myself and Kira, we'd booked the Airbnb months ago when I booked the race. So I thought, like, we've booked the Airbnb, so let's just go down. You know, be a bit of a waste not to. And by that stage, the free cancellation had elapsed. So made the decision to head down on Saturday afternoon, and was just like, I'll get on the race start line, I'll warm up, and I'll just see what happens. And I was chatting to a few friends sort of who were also racing at the time, and like, it looked pretty silly, it just looked like a cut on my knee. They were like, surely you can race, but it was really bruised all week, right down the shin, and I was in quite a bit of pain, all week, and like I say, I wasn't really able to move very quickly. And I think the body kind of devotes a lot of energy towards healing as well when something like this happens. I don't know how the cyclists do it. We can talk about Pogacar in Strada Bianchi. He came off the bike and went on and absolutely hammered Tom Pidcock and won the race. He's a different animal. But when the body, probably adrenaline in that case, but when the body's healing and you're trying to get better, there's a lot of energy being devoted towards that process, and then that takes away in turn from the energy that you can sort of output towards your running. But anyways, started to warm up Sunday morning then, and got through the warm up. My legs felt heavy, but I felt okay. Like, I was moving fine, and I think the race adrenaline really started to kick in, and I had no awareness of the pain in my knee sort of from that wound. And just said, like, I'll start the race, and if I get to 1 mile race pace and I just don't feel like I can run at that pace, I'll just pull back and just get a long run in. And got in and felt really good. I actually felt great, and it wasn't until about mile 9 of the race where I started to feel an awareness, and in fact I became very aware. I think the adrenaline just wore off at that stage, and I just felt like my leg was like massive. It felt like I had this a leg that was just bigger than the other, but it was fine. It didn't really stop me from running, and when I looked at my splits in hindsight, they were all pretty even. So I didn't run with any splits on the watch. I just got off the start line pretty relaxed and fell into a group that I kind of knew I could hold my own within. A group of other runners. I think there's about 8 of us at the start. After 4 to 5 miles, kind of found myself at the front of that group, and I think we gapped about 3 or 4 of the others, and then from there it got the group got smaller, and it ended up just me, eventually just myself and another guy from another club, Rathfarnham, sort of kind of trying to work together to sort of get through the race. So kind of taking turns. I would sort of be on the front and he could run on my heel, and then we would sort of go vice versa. It's like a bit of an unwritten rule, and try and block a little bit of the wind for each other at times. So that was great to have someone to kind of work towards, so you're not stuck in no man's land there. And we pretty much, he actually ended up finishing about 3 seconds ahead of me, but yeah, he was just a little bit stronger on the day. But overall, was really happy with how the race panned out, given all things considered. The week before the race was my biggest ever training week. And then the fall itself and sort of the doubts about whether I could race or not. And then just running a decent race and feeling like aerobically I was really, really strong. The legs, I think, just were quite heavy, but I've actually recovered really well post-race. And I'm really happy overall with how things went.
And you're gonna break the silence on your finishing time, because obviously I know it, but what was your half marathon?
Forgot about that. Half marathon time was 71:25, so 1 hour 11, 25 seconds.
Yeah. So like all things considered, that's a pretty phenomenal effort, essentially. Like that for most people, that's like incredibly quick.
I was really pleased with it. Given that, everything taken into consideration, I feel like there's more in there. I feel like my fitness is in, it's easy to say these things, isn't it? You have to go out and do it and express your fitness and actually race the race that you think you're in shape to race. But no, I felt really relaxed during the race, and you just kind of know that there's more in the tank. So that's a good sign, and it's also, I feel like it's a good sign in marathon training, do you know? Because at the end of the day, London Marathon's the goal, and I kind of want to be cresting the mountaintop on marathon day, not at Bohermeen half when I talk about kind of peaking and periodizing things. So feel like I'm on the right track, and yeah, all things considered, I was really happy with the performance. It's a really good race. We were stood on the start line for about 35 minutes after the start was due to happen. I know there's been a lot of angry people this week about that, but
That's a long
these
old
things
time.
happen. It is, mate, but you know what? These things happen. Like, I don't think it's anyone's intention for something like that to happen. Like, I get it. You know, I think what happened was people were being bussed from a car park that was maybe a mile and a half away to the start line.
Okay.
And obviously people were delayed in getting to that car park, and the buses then were delayed in getting to the start. And the people that were being bussed to the start had to make their way to the back of the crowd. So it kind of delayed things further. And it was just this chain reaction. But yeah, I just don't see the point in getting annoyed or angry about it. It's not the race organisers' fault, so to speak. I personally don't think it is. I mean, they probably do everything that they can to run a smooth race. That's ultimately what they want. So yeah, just get on with it. But yeah, standing around on the start line for 35, 40 minutes, everyone kind of gets a bit edgy. I personally feel like if you have some pre-race nerves, that just gets rid of them, because you're just like, oh, whatever now.
Yeah.
And
True.
I think that could be a good thing,
point.
you know, because you don't want to go off the start line of a half marathon like the clappers, because it's a long way. And if you're over that red line at 2-3 mile, even though you might be feeling class because you're full of adrenaline, it's game over. Yeah, you're just invariably going to slow down in the back half of the race. So yeah, overall it was good. Great course, great setup. We'd definitely go back to Bohermeen. As I say, we stayed in the Airbnb, which was like a mile and a half away from the start line, and it was about 42 seconds outside my lifetime best, which was set in 2023 actually, in Oma half, before I had the bit of a health scare that I had in 2024. So yeah, overall really happy, and really happy with how I feel like I'm progressing. I also, just to touch on, have decided that I don't think I'm going to be wearing the Alpha Flies on marathon race day.
Interesting. Man, I've got a lot of follow-up questions, and I'm not really sure where to start, but I mean, you've teased me now, because
let's start with the follow-up questions, and then we'll talk about the Alpha Flies, shall we?
Okay, we'll have to put a pin in the Alpha Flies, because I've got some thoughts on that as well that's come up this week, sorry. But I suppose firstly, I just wanted to give my 2 cents and say, just around the injury, I really think adrenaline is such a powerful thing that, like you said, I mean, it might not necessarily look like you had a huge gaping wound on your knee, but at the end of the day, there was probably still quite a lot of inflammation and swelling, like you said. And it's phenomenal that as soon as you do get a bit of, it's like you said, the cyclists who eat dirt so hard, if they crash, they're crashing at kind of upwards of potentially 80 kilometers an hour a lot of the time, and then they're getting back up and they're carrying on. So for a runner who's on the start line of a race, that adrenaline's going to go a really long way, like you said. But yeah, I was wondering just what the course was like, because I know there's such a big element of specificities, maybe not kind of what I was getting at, but in terms of gauging, you don't just have a chance to run your best race, say, at every course, because they're all so different, right? So how does this compare to some of the other kind of halves you've done?
Pretty good. It's 2 loops of quite a big open course. The second loop's slightly different, just to make up the right distance. But it's long, straight country roads. So you are running for quite a lot of time with not much support on the sides of the roads, which doesn't really bother me much. You should just kind of lock in and focus on your own race. That's, when the case is like that. There was a few ups and a few downs, but nothing crazy. There was a few, you went up onto sort of motorway flyover bridges and back down the other side. So some people would consider that to be hilly, but yeah, given some of the courses that I have ran, it certainly wasn't hilly. And I also think people sometimes overthink, when there is a hill on a course, I think people sometimes think, oh, this isn't a PB course, and they almost get in their own heads about it. It's like, well, what goes up must come down as well. So, you know, if you run hard up the hill, you can sort of freewheel down the other side and probably pick up a little bit of pace. And I also think it's good because it sort of mixes up the stimulus. Sometimes these pancake flat courses can be quite difficult to actually run on, especially if you don't train on that kind of terrain a massive amount. So probably not the fastest course in the world, but certainly nowhere near the slowest. And if the weather conditions are good, which relatively they were, there was a lot of personal bests set. So yeah, I mean, you can't complain if people are setting personal bests. It's always a good sign.
For sure. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to touch on for anyone who maybe, because I'm only new to racing, but I know a lot of people out there are more recreational runners and probably don't really have much of an idea about racing at all. But you were talking about obviously going off in a pack and then get it splitting off into you and the other lad, and how that kind of, you help each other. And for anyone who has ever watched or understands cycling or has ridden, maybe not in a peloton, but in a cycling club, what happens is, like you said, you can literally cycle in front of someone, and what you're doing is blocking headwind. So the person behind you is actually putting in less effort to get the same speed or pace in this instance as you are. So I guess it's less pronounced when you're running because maybe you're not
definitely less
at
pronounced
high enough speeds, for sure.
Yeah.
But why don't you kind of touch on the benefit that it has psychologically running with another individual or a group as opposed to in no man's land?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly, you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's a psychological benefit. It's sort of like a rhythm thing as well. I find when you're kind of running in a pack or running on the heel of someone, as long as it's not hectic and crazy and everyone is kind of moving at one pace, you just kind of find yourself locking into that rhythm. And if you're sitting in behind 2 or 3 other people, when you're in that rhythm, you can kind of switch off a little bit and just focus on just, you know, being smooth and staying on the heel and not having to kind of surge or do anything crazy. So it's really a psychological benefit more than an actual physical benefit. I don't feel like you get a massive drafting effect unless you're traveling into like a block headwind. If you're running into a straight headwind and you're running in behind someone or a group of people, you definitely do get some of that wind block. But at the end of the day, those lads who are running in front of you, they're taking the wind and they're probably slowing down a little bit, because if they keep running at the pace that they're running into the headwind, they're going to shoot over that red line very, very quickly. So they're probably adjusting their pace. And so you might feel like you're getting more of a block than you are, but really you're just slowing down a little bit. So yeah, it's just that psychological thing. You also have to get used to doing it. It's quite tricky. And a lot of people don't like it because they're not used to running on the heels of someone else. If I feel really good, I don't like it. I prefer just running on the front and just sort of relaxing into my own rhythm. But sort of when you're feeling a bit rough and a bit nasty, it can be a good way to sort of switch off for a mile or two and just be like, okay, I'm just going to sit here for a mile until things start to change. And it can be really useful in a long distance race like a marathon. But with the caveat there that you have to be careful because you don't want to trip someone up, and similarly you don't want to be tripped yourself. And if someone's like speeding up ever so slightly or slowing down, particularly when they slow down a little bit, you want to be really careful that you're kind of paying close attention, and that you're not going to destroy your own or someone else's race, importantly. But yeah,
there's definitely it's an art to it.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's I enjoy like feeling like you're working together in a race as well. Do you know, I enjoy that feeling where you're kind of in this together and there's a bit of suffering together. You know, everyone's feeling the same or worse. That's kind of what I tell myself anyway. It's like, well, if I'm feeling this way, those lads are feeling worse. I just tell myself that. And that can help as a little mental strategy to get you through that rough patch in a race. And then it's like, okay, so if I feel like this and whatever, and those lads are feeling worse, like I say in my head, it's like, okay, so what stage am I going to push on here? What stage can I start to maybe try to break these and try to beat them? Do you know, because ultimately the competitor comes out and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to try and beat the 4 or 5 lads that I'm racing with, and you know, that's part of racing, and I think that feeds into the running on feeling and running on effort in races, which quite a lot of people sort of ask me about sometimes. and something that I am a massive advocate of is learning to race on feeling and intuition and effort. And it's like, if you're doing that and you're in the pack and the pack is kind of pacing and you're making decisions based off of all of that, you're just learning to race on instinct and feeling. And you can think to yourself, well, okay, there's a lad that's 20 seconds up the road. I'm going to aim to catch him in the next 2 to 3 miles, and then I'm going to move on, and so on and so forth. So you sort of start to hone the craft of actually racing, as opposed to just like being governed by the GPS on your watch and the splits that are coming out at you that, listen, they don't mean that much because, you know, one, they might not be that accurate, like we mentioned before, and two, you could be feeling fantastic and able to speed up, and you're actually saying, no, I'm not speeding up because my watch is telling me I'm on this time. So I just think it doesn't really, yeah, I just don't. I think running on feeling and racing on effort is absolutely class.
Yeah, and I can attest to that now that I've got officially 2 runs or races under my belt. But before I go into my kind of my race, and obviously I still want to talk about the Alpha Flies, I do just want to clarify, like, although they're races and the goal for a lot of people is to race and that element of competition comes out, like, you don't have to. If you're just going to run these races for fun, which a lot of them are, like, don't feel you need to literally push against people. You can literally just hop onto a group or find someone else to run at the same pace for, and then aim to get the same pace. Like, there doesn't have to be that element of competition, but I know for myself and definitely for Adam, that competitive nature definitely comes out. And although you are kind of helping each other during the race, like towards the end, you're like, okay, we've got to put this to bed now, and actually let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get a strong finish here.
Yeah,
so
that's
that
it.
definitely comes
Yeah,
out. But
I think do what you feel is the most fun way to do it. Do you know what I mean? If you feel like racing and maybe competing with others is fun, do that. If you feel like running in a pack and just sticking with the pack and whatever, if you feel like that's fun, do that. It's like, I always think it's great to have good race experiences that make you want to race again. As opposed to, now you can't control this all the time, because of course there's going to be times when you get it wrong, but it's those races that you get wrong that kind of reset and kind of help you find that balance point again. Do you know, for example, Copenhagen in September, I had a poor race in terms of my execution and how I kind of done that race, and then that shifts your mindset back to the kind of middle where you want to be. And then sometimes you might have a race where you're like, "Ah, you know what, I could have went a bit harder there," and then you shift things again. So I think it's important to remember that every race isn't the be all and end all, and you just learn things every time you race and every time you do a race, and you can just take that learning into your next race and apply it and see what happens, and just keep going from there. And it's like a constant experiment. You know, you don't have to get it perfect the first time. I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves, and I understand it, especially when you've entered a big marathon, for example, and you're traveling somewhere to run it. You want to get it right, but at the end of the day, it's a running race, and everything can't go perfectly. There's a lot of things that can, go wrong, or deviate from the perfect path, and you just have to be. I think you have to be able to deal with those things.
for sure, and that's something that even can be, I guess, taught or learned through training as well. Like if you're a new runner, you're probably going to find that your training numbers are improving pretty linearly to a point, depending on what kind of training you're doing. But there comes a point where you're going to have a session that, or even multiple sessions sequentially, that aren't as good as the previous. And instead of going, oh look, I'm regressing, it's taking a turn for the worse, I'm doing something wrong, you just got to accept that these things happen, and it's literally impossible at a point to be able to continue increasing linearly. Otherwise, we'd all be like basically elite runners, because there's no end to how good we can get. Like, you're going to get to that, and I think you're someone with enough experience now to really kind of embody that and just accept, like you said, that yes, you've gone to Copenhagen. It's a really big half marathon. It's a big event. It's a big trip. But like, you're there to enjoy yourself. Like, running's meant to be fun, unless you're Jakob Ingebrigtsen and you're purely running because you're trying to get results and nothing else matters, like you can have a bad run. It's not the end of the world.
Just exactly what you said. Like, just get perspective on it. It's just a run, do you know? I think sometimes people get and I probably would have been like this a while ago. Just you get so almost upset about a bad race and a bad run. It's like it's just running, and there's another race down the track that's coming, and really, like, the joy of running is actually just training every single day that you decide to go out training, because races don't happen that often. Whereas you train a hell of a lot more than what you race. Certainly most people do. And yeah, I think you just need to, I think most people that do feel like they get really upset after a race that maybe doesn't go to plan, it's like, just reframe the whole thing, you know, and have a bit of, sounds a bit cheesy again, but just have a bit of gratitude that you're out there, you're fit, you're healthy. There's a lot of people that would kill to be in your shoes and you know, doing what you're doing that are unable to do that. So once you kind of get that element of perspective on it all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm pretty lucky here, despite the bad race, that I'm out here doing this thing it's really cool. And I think that also feeds into, like, for example, pre-race nerves and anxiety. You can reframe the whole thing and start to change your mindset on it to a mindset of gratefulness, that, like, you get to do this thing that's, yeah, a lot of people aren't able to do. And no matter what your predicted time is or whatever, like, or whatever your goals are, it's like, well, you're actually able to do it. So yeah, reframe it that way and gain that perspective on it, and I think you can really change your attitude on it.
I got to interject. It brings us back to the flow state phrase, which is "Don't miss the forest for the trees," man. Like,
that's exactly right.
We got to get this on a t-shirt, bro, because it just comes up every week without failure. But look, it is exactly that. Like, don't miss the bigger picture. Don't miss the forest for the trees, because yeah, it's just not worth it. And yeah, I think that's really well put. But look, we got to talk about attire, because might I just add that even in your warm-up videos, I was like, man, this guy has got pizzazz. For me, watching your Instagram, seeing you warm up, don't laugh, because it's true. Had the Oakleys on, had the black tracksuit, had the Alpha Flies on. I was like, man, this guy's looking good. And then we moved to the actual race video, and these are the shortest split shorts I've ever seen in my life, to the point where, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a bit of bum cheek that was visible, and I was like, that is goals. That is a
spotted. Well, the jacket that I was wearing was given to me by a friend, first and foremost. So yeah.
Thank you to the friend that
thanks,
dressed Adam.
He grabbed me that one. And the shoes that I was wearing for the warm up, they were actually in the boot of my car. They're ready for the bin, mate. Those are a pair of Hoka Bondis that are absolutely destroyed. They're ready for the bin. And the split shorts, I realised post-race that you can see a bit of bum cheek. So I think people should really be paying for that kind of content. But
100%.
Yeah, Kira got a video of me going up the home stretch, and I was watching it afterwards, and I was like, oh my God, like, those split shorts are a bit short. So
nah, never.
Yeah, mate, they're for you.
That is fantastic. No, I need to up my game.
Yeah, they're a pair of Soar split shorts to match our new club vests. So our club got Soar running vests. Anyone that doesn't know Soar, they're kind of like a bit of a high end running brand. Their stuff's really expensive, but it's incredible for racing in. It's so light, and the vests, I've never worn anything like them, especially when you're running longer distance races, you know, like a half marathon or a marathon, and the sweat really starts to build on a vest. Our old vests were just made by this Irish company, and O'Neill's, for anyone that is from here, and they were kind of thick, and when you sweated in them, I always felt like over my diaphragm, sweat just gathered and it stuck to your chest and your stomach, and like eventually in a race, it actually became hard to breathe, because the sweaty vest that was thick and heavy was just stuck to the part that's trying to actually contract and move. So the Soar is like the complete opposite of that. It's like the best thing that you can wear. I mean, literally when you carry it in your hand, it's like the lightest thing ever. In fact, your race number that you pin onto your vest is heavier than the vest itself.
It's thicker, bro. Yeah, yeah.
It is. It feels like you're wearing nothing. It's like they are class, and obviously then for the half marathon and the marathon, those longer distance races, when you are starting to build up more and more sweat as the race goes on, that vest just comes into its own. So those shorts match the sore vest. I've also got a pair of the half tights for maybe the marathon that have like the little loops that you can carry your gels in. So yeah, I need to test those out and see which ones I'll wear for London.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, you're not really a tights guy. You're very much a short shorts kind of guy.
I wear tights a lot for training, but mostly for racing. I like the split shorts. Yeah, I just like to feel like I'm wearing nothing when I race. I just don't you just don't want anything. It's as simple as that. I just don't like clothes,
bro. Yeah, I want to feel naked.
But that's pretty much it. But because
it is,
as you get tired and as you're like, a race is like nothing else. Nothing can kind of prepare you for the intensity of a race. And when you're in those last 2-3 miles of a race and you are starting to feel pretty rough and pretty tired, and everything starts to piss you off and annoy you. Do you know? I mean, like and this is what I'm going to talk about when it comes to the alpha flies. And you just want to feel like those things are going to annoy you as little as possible. So having light racewear, just feels like you're not really wearing anything.
Let's. I've just literally got that. You know the Simpsons episode where it's Flanders is doing his skiing thing and he goes, "It feels like I'm wearing nothing at all." And it just does it on repeat. That's all I've got in my head now. So thanks for that, Adam. But look, put us out of our misery. Tell us about the alpha flies. What's happened?
Yeah, so it's sort of been on my mind for a while actually with the alpha fly. I've worn it quite a lot now. I bought it for Copenhagen half and wasn't sure about it after Copenhagen half, but then I didn't have a great race, so I was like, okay, is it just the fact that I overcooked it early in the race and just like my mind's just saying the shoe was crap because whatever, and the shoe isn't crap, by the way. I think just this is a real first world problem because we now have access to having this conversation with another lad when I was cooling down after the race. It's like we now have access to so many different shoes, and we touched on it last week as well when we talked about footwear. And some of the shoes, I personally find like when I land in a shoe, and I'm talking about the sole of the shoe here, it's like you want the shoe to feel like you land naturally and you don't have to think about the way that you run, and you don't have to sort of maybe adjust the way you run in a shoe to land properly, or to feel like you're being really efficient and really smooth. So I find that Alpha Fly 3, like I just find myself thinking about how I land, especially as I get tired. And I've had a pair of the Vaporfly 3 that are now, I've actually given them away because they were completely done. I'd raced in them and then I'd trained in them, and then they were pretty much gone. And that Vaporfly 3 for me is probably the shoe that I'm going to wear in the marathon, because, and a lot of people actually don't like the Vaporfly 3. A lot of people are preferring the Vaporfly 1, the Vaporfly 2, and the other Alpha Fly models, as well as the Alpha Fly 3. But I find I'm kind of the opposite. Those other models didn't really work for me. Like the first Vaporfly, again, I really had to overthink the way I was landing in it. But this third Vaporfly just feels really, really good on my feet. So yeah, I got a fresh pair of those. They were actually, all things considered, really cheap, about half price, because I think there's a new version coming out. And I think that'll be the shoe for me in the marathon, because like I say, when I land in that shoe and I roll off sort of the forefoot, especially as I fatigue, I don't feel like that shoe's getting in my way. And I found that what I like in a race shoe is something that feels more nimble rather than clunky. And I think the Alpha Fly, especially as you get tired, I remember this distinctly from London Marathon in 2022. I wore the Alpha Fly 1. As I fatigued, the shoe just started to feel, even though it's a really light shoe and a really bouncy shoe, the shoe just started to feel clunky on my feet, and I actually started clipping my own calves with the inside of the shoe, because it is quite bulky, especially that kind of, the heel, stack height, the stack, and the heel. Yeah, the heel. It was starting to clip the insides of my heels. Like after the race, I had these kind of rashes on the inside of both heels, because as my legs tired, the shoes were clipping. And I felt that on Sunday, especially after that kind of 9th mile where I started to feel like my leg, I was aware of the leg that I was talking about. The shoe just started to feel like it was getting in my way a bit. So after the race, I was like, yeah, I don't think that's going to be the marathon shoe for me. And I'll probably wear the Vaporfly.
It's interesting because I think I mentioned in the last pod that I was talking to someone who worked at Runners Running Warehouse here in Melbourne, and he was saying something similar. He wasn't like talking smack on the Alpha Fly, but he was definitely saying that something he's found in someone that is literally selling this shoe to a lot of runners of all levels is that they are designed for the quickest of us, and they're designed to be basically smashed at very high kind of cadence over longer distances. And what's happening is if you are, like you said, getting fatigued and not able to have that quicker leg turnover, that they are going to start working against you, like you said, because they're not really designed for that. They're designed to be pushed pretty quick and pretty consistently over that 42 or half marathon to marathon distance. So definitely a really good point. And I see I've done a lot of training in Alpha Flies. Like a lot of my LT1, LT2 work is in the pair that I wore for the half marathon I did back in September, and I'll come into what I did for the 5K, but I was wearing a different pair. And something I've started to think about is just maybe they're quite, or for the size that I need in the Alpha Flies, they're quite snug on my foot. And something tells me that, I mean, long story short, I actually finished the 5K race, and I didn't realize it, but I did have blisters on the outside of my toe, and I was actually complaining about the Endorphin Elite 2 because it was rubbing on the outside of my right toe, my right little toe. And then I've noticed that after the race, even the Alpha Flies are rubbing. So I think it's maybe my foot placement. But now I was thinking, like, I mean, my plan was to run in the Adios Pro 4s for Ballarat, but now I'm like, definitely, man, if this is what 5K is doing to me at race pace, like 42, you could be in some serious bother because, like you said, things are going to annoy you in a marathon because you're out there for upwards of from anywhere from 2.5 to 4-5 hours in some instances. And if you're in a shoe that is not suiting you, that's a long time to be suffering. So I think it's, definitely, I maybe been put off the Alpha Fly for marathons going forward. But did you have anything more to add, or should I get
that's the
into
thing.
mine?
No, that's the thing. I mean, comfort is the number one thing here. It's like, choose comfort over anything else, because all of these shoes have been extensively tested in labs, and like most of them will give you pretty much identical amounts of energy return in terms of, like, most of them will give you identical amount of performance benefit. So I always feel like if you're more comfortable in the shoe and you feel like you're moving well in the shoe, you're going to access all of that energy return, you know, whereas if you're uncomfortable and you're overthinking the way you're landing in the shoe or the way you feel in the shoe, because you're overthinking that, you're just not going to be getting everything the shoe has to offer you. So
For sure.
yeah, that's pretty much it. And I had that, I stuck the Vaporfly on my foot last night just when it came, and was like, yeah, this just feels better again. Do you know, it feels like home.
Yeah.
So
hello old friend.
Yeah, I actually trained. I done a session yesterday. The body's pulled up really well after the half, and I did a session yesterday. Went to go to the track. It ended up there was an exclusive booking on the track, so I actually couldn't get on. So I ended up doing the session on the towpath, just down where the running track is, which is fine. It worked perfectly, and the towpath's actually marked. It's been measured every 400 meters, and it's marked. So I wanted to do a long sort of session of 400 meter reps and wore the Alpha Fly, and that just kind of confirmed that. I was like, yeah, I'm running, you're running relatively fast and you're getting the bounce, but again, it's that first word problem. You're just like, this just isn't right for me. It's just not the right tool. So
for sure.
Yeah, I'll train away on it, and I'll probably do 1 or 2 runs in the Vaporfly, because I think the Vaporfly, I was having this conversation with another guy yesterday. It's like, I think the Vaporfly probably just doesn't last in terms of races that long. You know, it loses it loses a bit of that, you know, real benefit probably after about 100, maybe 120 miles. So it's still a great shoe at that stage and you can still race in it. But if you want to get the absolute most out of it, I think it has to be pretty fresh. So I'll probably race, I'm due to race now Dublin Half Marathon in a couple of weeks' time. And if I race Dublin Half, I'll probably wear the Vaporfly there and then just pop it back in the box and save it for London. But listen, mate, I'd love to hear about your 5K. Are we ringing that PB bell?
We are, to be honest with you, mate, all I'd have had to have done was finish it and you'd be ringing a PB bell, because as far as my running career goes, my only experience ever running like just a specific 5K, obviously I've run 5K distance more times than I like to think about, but when I started running, the physio, Anthony, who works at the Movement Institute, was doing me like a program, and he was like, look, first step in getting you started running is let's do like a 5K time trial. And I did it around like a local park. It was like apocalyptic rain. Like it was absolutely tipping it down. And I remember struggling to do, I think it was about 5:25 minute Ks, which is now slower than what I do my easy runs in, just for reference. And I was like dying. So
Man's got fit.
Look, well, man, improved fitness somewhat, but yeah, look, I did in that instance PB. So I'll just give a bit of a rewind. So that week, I kind of touched on it last time we spoke, but I was like, this is my second ever race. I was aware that I was going to be, because the level's not super high at this one, so I knew I was going to be up there in, like, as you say, the pointy end of the race. So that did play on my nerves, and I was like quite anxious. I was also very excited. And so that added to things. And from where we left off, I had a day off from running on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday I did like a half an hour shakeout, which I didn't feel amazing, but I didn't feel bad. Like I was running. I actually started the run in my New Balance Fuel Cell Rebels just because they were like to hand, and I actually within, I think about 5 minutes, I actually turned around and was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to wear the Cloud Eclipse, because those are my my trusty pair that never let me down. And yeah, it was fine, but I didn't feel special. I was just like, okay, I'm here. And then on the morning of the race, so this kind of embodies Melbourne in like no other way, right? So I was checking the weather for the Monday because it was public holiday. I was checking it 7 days out. It was like anywhere from about, it was fluctuating, fair play. It was anywhere from about kind of at race time, maybe 23 to 25 degrees. But most importantly, it was going to be sunny. There was going to be low wind. It was going to be beautiful, right? I love this kind of weather. And we left the house. So the race started at 8 and the plan was to get there from 7. So I had time to grab my bib, warm up, like meet some friends and have a good time. And so we left the house probably about 6:30. It was dark. And we're about 10 minutes out from the suburb that the race is in. And there's some pretty dark looking clouds. And I was like, that wasn't like in the plan. Like, I don't remember seeing that.
I'm just going to say
like,
that's why you don't check the weather, mate.
Yeah, no, that was, I know now, but I probably shouldn't have done. Exactly. But there I am, like getting closer and closer to the race and going, okay, so these clouds are definitely getting closer and it's definitely starting to rain. And literally got there at basically bang on 7 and the heavens opened. And from 7 until 8, the race start, it was tipping it down. Like I was actually saturated. It was probably good I was in relatively like light race gear, because otherwise I would have been like heavy with liquid basically, because it was raining so hard. And that did kind of it did annoy me a little bit. And then once I started warming up, I was like, oh, screw it, like it is what it is. I'm gonna race and it's gonna be a good time. But yeah, I got to the race. I was like, okay, there was a 5K, a 10K, a 15 and a 20. It was all around, for anyone that's in Melbourne, it was around Princes Park in North Colton, and it was basically a 5K loop which included Princes Park, and then there was a little kind of up and back to the side which had a little hill, which I didn't actually realize how steep it was until I ran it. And so like for the 5K you do it once, for the 10 twice, so on and so forth. And I I was like, I'm going to get to the front. Like I said, I knew I was going to be at the pointy end of the race. I'll try and give myself some headway. Unfortunately, the sun came out right as it started, as we started to like line up, and it was lovely. It's fantastic in the end. Maybe a bit muggy, which I'll get onto in a sec. But for me, like, heat is no problem. I can deal with heat. But yeah, I was on the start line. There was this like young lad in front of me. I think he was probably about 17 years old, like really cool guy. And I was like, oh, because he was wearing the some Asics, and I was just asking him how we found them. And we got talking, and he was like, oh, so what time are you aiming for? And I was like, look, anything with an 18 in front of it, but I really don't know. I've never run a 5K race before. This is my second ever race. Could go anyway. And he was like, yeah, fair enough. I'm aiming for like a 17 high, maybe a 1740, 1750. I was like, okay, sick. I've got someone to follow. Well, that's what went through my head. And so race starts, like me and this kid are at the front. He goes off like shit off a shovel, and I was like, fantastic. Now we're racing, and he's probably about 20 to 30 meters in front of me for a good while, and I'm just kind of following him, using him as my guide, because I'm like, I'm not looking at my watch, I'm not looking at my pace, I'm literally just going to run by feel. And I think following him, I went off a little bit quick. My first K ended up being about 3:27, which I wouldn't have been able to sustain. I quickly realized that, and I drew back a little bit into my kind of 3:30s, 3:30 mid. But then we're about, I think, 2K in, and he suddenly starts slowing down quite a lot. Or at least, like, all I knew was that he was getting closer to me. So I was like, either he's slowing down or I'm speeding up. But I kept my intensity pretty consistent. So I was like, I must be speeding up. And it got to the point where inevitably I overtook him, because we're all following this cyclist who was basically like cycling the route for us, because we were at the front. And I was like, okay, it's just me and the cyclist. So all I need to do, like Adam told me last week, is just run like run scared, basically. And I'm gonna win this race, and it's happy days. And so I'm just there at the front for the next basically 2K. So up until we get to this up and back, the hill. And I, to my detriment, I didn't realize how steep this hill was. So I was like, oh, I don't know how hard to push. Because if I knew how long it was, I could have maybe like adjusted my effort to match. But I think I purposefully pulled back very slightly on this uphill, even though I'm pretty good at hills. Like when I used to cycle, I used to love hills because I'm quite light. Like on race day, I woke up at 64 point something kilos, which for me is light. So I love a good hill. I love a challenge. But I was like, oh, I don't know how like long this is going to go on for. So I'm gonna manage it. I'm gonna be like a little bit conservative. And something else to mention is there was like two hairpins, and because it was wet, the ground was slick. I was like, I'm not going to go too fast, because the last thing I want to do is fall over. So I also went pretty conservatively around those. But
yeah, you don't want to do an Adam.
Yeah, no, I was like, Adam was in my head, or Adam's knee was in my head. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going there. But yeah, so there I am with about a kilo to go, and a kilometer to go, and all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I'm still in the front. But then I hit, because I'm not wearing headphones. Like I've decided I'm never going to run in headphones. That's not really something I want to do. I can hear footsteps behind me, and I'm like, I hope this is either a really fast, like recreational runner who's just running the same course, or I'm hearing things, because I think there's someone like on my tail. And then with about a kilometer to go, this guy that I've never seen before, like he was nowhere near the start line. I didn't recognize him warming up. I didn't see him. Is overtaking me, looking pretty comfortable. And I'm like, man, I wish I could follow this guy and try and actually like, but I was running at probably like my 99%. And if I sped up just a little bit, I'm overcooking it. I'm burning dinner. It's game over. So I was like, look, I'm just going to let him go. And long story short, he finished 12 seconds ahead of me. And in my head, I was like, man, I really want to see his Strava route, because I didn't see him at all. And I really hope he didn't like cut any corners or something, jump in somewhere, because that'd do me dirty. I was gracious. Like I finished second, like long story short, my finishing time was 18:01, which was like beyond what I thought I was going to get. So the fact of the matter is I was 2 seconds off being in the 17s. So very, very pleased with that. And I can't lie, when I crossed the line, the first thing that went through my head was, man, I really wanted to win that. And it was more frustration. Like you said, we're boys. We have a bit of an ego sometimes, and I'm past it now. I'm chuffed to bits. I had a great time. But when I crossed that line, I was a little bit salty. I'll be completely honest with you.
Hope you weren't salty with the guy that beat you.
No, first thing I did, like, in all fairness, is I went over to him. I shook his hand. I was like, man, you had me there. That was a really good run. And yeah, it was a great time, and I was really pleased with that. So yeah, but what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was just well, first of all, well done. That's class. The fact that you ran 18 minutes for your first ever 5K is unreal. I'm sure lots of people listening will be like, that's just incredible, because it is. I think my first 5K was a park run, and I went hammer and tongue, and I think it was like 24 minutes or something, and I was cooked at the end. I remember looking around me being like, how do these people run under 20 minutes? Like, that is I honestly thought that was beyond my wildest dreams, you know, to be like a sub 20 minute runner, to be able to hold a sub 7 minute pace for 3.1 miles was like, that's impossible, you know. And then I was like looking at sub 3 hour marathoners being like, you are just like, you are on a different planet, you know. So there is, you just progress, and you know, if you actually commit to this sport, you just see the progress, and that's probably the most pleasing thing about it, you know.
Yeah.
But no, absolutely unreal, mate. Delighted for you, and it's the little card on the end of the stick now to run sub 18 minutes, which no doubt you'll do in your next race. You'll absolutely smash it. And I think the approach that you took is the one to take into the next race, because you don't need to have that like split in your head. Rather, you just gain some more fitness, get on the start line, and race hard. But no, what I was going to ask you was, with the guy that beat you in the end, did you get speaking to him? Like, because sometimes what you find is sometimes people go to races and kind of use them as a bit of a training stimulus, and he could have been like a faster runner, you know, maybe a 16-minute guy or even faster, but he was just doing like a bit of a progression run or a tempo run. Sometimes you find that in some of these races. Did you get chatting to him?
No, see, it's kind of because I had family there, and I had a couple of friends from work that were running the race with me, not necessarily against me, but just people that I'd kind of told about, and I was like, oh, you should come down, we should make a bit of a morning of it. He wasn't particularly, I wasn't like overly trying to have a chat with him, but he didn't come across as the person that was like super chatty. Like, when he finished the race, he didn't go over to a group. I think he might have been like just that, because he was there by himself for the most part. And look, to be honest with you, I didn't even think, I know you can't judge someone how they look, but this kid that I lined up with, who ended up coming in just behind me, he came third in the end, and I think he actually dropped off. He was about 40 seconds, I think, behind me, but he looked fast, right? Like, he was in the Met Speed Sky Paris, he was in the Nike Aero Swift race gear. I was like, okay, this kid looks fast. I'm gonna have a chat, see where he's coming. But the kid that beat me, like, I mean, maybe I'm doing something wrong, because he was wearing the Vaporfly as well, right? So maybe that's something. But he looked very like just casual, nonchalant, which is a testament to him, man, because he can just rock up to a 5K and just win it like that. There's me in all my UVU gear, in my Alpha Flies, my shoe socks, like my Oakleys and whatnot. But no, fair play to the lad, because very, very strong runner. So
I love that though. I love those people that that's my favorite kind of runner. It's like the guy or the girl that's really fast and really fit, but just doesn't give a damn. Well, they look like they don't give a damn. You know, they're not decked out in all the latest trends, and they're not spending a fortune on their race kit or whatever, and they just turn up, and they represent their local club, and they're a really strong runner, and they just there's no airs or graces about them, you know. I think that's really cool, you know. So like you say, there's a lot of people that look fast that aren't fast.
Oh, it's true. I mean, look, in my defense, like, I was really unsure what I was going to race in, and for me, it's like I am someone that, if I feel like I look good, if I'm comfortable and happy with how I look, I'm going to run more comfortably. It's just how it is. And I'd heard a lot of really good things about the Nike Aero Swifts, like the vest and the shorts and whatnot. But this is kind of weird, and me being really picky, I really don't like V-necks. Anything with a V, I don't know if it's because I've got like a chest tattoo, but it just kind of looks really weird. So I was like, look, I'm not going to do that. I don't really know much about the Adidas stuff, but I really like the brand UVU. They're obviously London based. I think looks really cool, and I'd heard some really good things. And I think, like I said, it's really important how you look. And I wasn't sure how it was going to be for racing because, like you said, SOAR are kind of some of the industry best when it comes to race gear, but it is very, very expensive, even by like UVU standards. So for reference, I think a UVU vest is going to cost you about it's $100 and something, which is quite expensive. But then the SOAR vests are upwards of 300 Aussie dollars in some instances.
Really?
Like they're very, very expensive.
That's right.
But honestly, I wore some. I like the half tights for racing, the UVU half tights, and the vest as well. And although it's only like it's an 18-minute run, it's a 5K. Like the vest was fantastic. Like I was like, damn, I literally doesn't feel like I'm wearing anything. I go tucked in for mine because I don't want anything flapping around or like shifting on my torso. So I do go shirt tucked in. But I was like, man, this is so comfortable. So shout out to UVU. I know they're not necessarily like on the same level as Nike or Adidas, but they're doing really big things, and I looked cool. Most importantly,
I must check them out.
Yeah, do honestly, it's very much like a hype brand, and I know we're both into fashion, so it's a fashionable brand, but yeah, it was
the thing
good stuff.
too. Anyone that sort of is into their fashion and likes, their clothes like you and I do. Some people like to give those people a hard time, and it's like, oh, look at that guy and he's wearing all the kit and he's not that fast, and it's like, let him. If that's what makes him feel good, and that's what he enjoys, and he likes spending his hard-earned cash on the clothing that he chooses to buy, it's like, by all means, mate, you do you. And it's like live and let live. Everyone can exist happily here. Similarly, the guy that just wants to race in his club kit and his old shorts, like, more power to you. Good on you, mate. I just think everyone can exist happily in this sport.
Oh, exactly right. And again, I think that morning I saw someone literally doing just a recreational run around the park in the same shorts. And the first thing that went through my head wasn't, oh man, that guy is like way too slow to be wearing those shorts. I was like, man, that guy's got the same shorts as me. Like, he's got great taste. How cool is that? But yeah, running's definitely not one of those sports.
I think a lot of old school athletics heads, they don't like the sunglasses, and they don't like the matching kit, and they don't like the flashy shoes. I don't know why. They just want athletics to stay traditional. Maybe that's not it. I don't know. Maybe they just don't like flashy stuff. But I think, there is some people that take the piss. There is some people that are overkill. But again, if that's what floats your boat, you do 100%. You. Do you know what I mean? And everyone can be happy. You don't have to be annoyed at someone else.
Whatever happens for runners, it can't be as bad as the recreational cyclists. And I love cycling. I would definitely do this if I had the money, but a recreational cyclist going out in their kind of $5,000 Pinarello Dogma with the Rafa head to toe and about like $2,000 worth of Rafa gear, basically. I'm like, it can never be that bad, because the most you're spending on a pair of super shoes is probably $300-400. And the most you're spending on an outfit is probably like similar. So you're nowhere near on the heights of the cyclist. So don't worry about it.
Running has got expensive though. Do you know? If you want to make it expensive, it doesn't have to be as expensive as some people make out, but it can be expensive if you want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, just to touch on shoes. So me and Adam, we're like kindred spirits, because I ran mine in the Alpha Fly Freeze as well. And that was always the plan. Like, I had a fresh pair ready to go for this race, and I think I'll probably end up doing a lot of training in them. But slightly different experience to you. I don't think ever in the Alpha Flies have I felt like I need to think about how I'm running in terms of like how my feet are placed, but I do sometimes notice that I clip my calves. So that's something that I've done before. So maybe that is something to to bear in mind for me. But honestly, for the 5K, which Alpha Flies aren't really made for, like they're more of a long distance shoe, I still felt they were pretty fantastic. And I think the sign of a good shoe if you're racing is you don't notice it. And
Yeah.
for these, I just felt comfortable, and it like, yes, there was some rubbing, but I only noticed that night when I like looked to my feet and I was like, okay, I've got some blistering on my toe. But yeah, I tend to be in agreement. Like, I'm now thinking maybe this probably isn't the best idea for a marathon, because I don't know what shape my feet will end up. But yeah, I'm interested because I've never worn the Vaporfly, and I'm clearly someone that likes to spread my toes when I run, and that's probably why I'm getting quite a lot of rubbing on the outside. But just before we wrap things up, how do you find? Because I've heard the Vaporfly quite narrow compared to the Alphafly, which is saying something. So I'm guessing that might not be a good fit for yours truly.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. The Vaporfly are pretty narrow, and if you don't like the fit of the Alphafly, you probably won't like the fit of the Vaporfly. But that's actually what I like about it. I like that nimble, quite small, narrow feeling. I remember when I was playing football, that's always what I wanted in a pair of football boots as well. I wanted something that felt quite neat on my feet, almost like a pair of like dancing shoes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like socks. Yeah. Just something that just felt really nimble and that you could move. You could be quite light on your feet in. I think maybe have you ran in the Ep.6 Metaspeed, Sky? That could be a good option for you.
It's weird. I tried them on
last week.
You tried it
on, didn't
you? But I don't know if it was because I wasn't thinking about it, because I didn't run particularly long. I was on I wasn't really going to buy them, and I was running on a treadmill just in the shop, and I don't know, maybe I needed, like, it's hard because when are you going to get the chance to actually go for a run in them unless you buy them? And I wasn't ready to commit to them. But yeah, it's a tough one. I actually had like a bit of a discount code that I was very, very close, because I now know my size, because I did try them on, and it was quite a significant discount code, and I was very tempted to just like pick up a pair. But then my wonderful partner, I literally go to her, I was like, look, I've got a discount code. Should I use it, or am I just being silly? And she was like, oh, look, if you're considering it and you're questioning it, probably shouldn't buy them. So I didn't, but maybe I'll get another chance at some point. But you've got props. What's the prop? What's happening?
These came yesterday. These, I think, are going to be, if you're watching on YouTube, these are probably going to be my marathon shoe.
So can I just add to that as well? That is the same colorway that, if anyone sees my Instagram, it's the same colorway that I had my Alpha Flies in. And if you haven't already, Adam, can you go and get yourself a matching pair of shoe socks? Not affiliated, by the way, in any way, but they
match the shoes.
They match the shoes. They literally, it's the colorway for that shoe.
Yeah, those came yesterday. So they will probably be the shoe that I wear in the marathon.
It's a class colorway. It looks smart.
Yeah, that means a lot, doesn't it?
It means the most, Adam. Let's be honest.
I like you know what? I like a white shoe. I think white running shoes are just so cool.
You go faster. It's scientifically proven that you run at least 17% faster in a white shoe.
Yeah.
For me, it's either white with white socks, or if I'm going a colored shoe, it has to be monotone, and it has to be a monotone sock as well, right? So I can't stand anything. Again, I'm being really like first world problems here, but when someone wears like a block, because a lot of the running shoes you get now are one color, so it's like block neon green or block red, and then people wear white socks. I'm like, for training, fine. If you're racing, you got to match, man. It's got to be like the same neon into the shoe.
I kind of like the white sock, actually.
But even for like, if you had, let's say, a black shoe, would you wear a white sock with a black shoe?
If I was racing, yeah, I think I would.
And I'm not sure.
I always wear white socks. Well, pretty much always wear white socks when I'm racing. So I think I've never done the matching thing. I've just always done the white socks. Yeah. Just whatever shoe I'm wearing, I wear a white sock.
Oh, I guess this is me being overly picky, but
maybe I should match. Yeah, I'm gonna have to maybe get on the matching game. You know what, mate? You can tell you're a cyclist at heart.
Yeah, true.
Because that's a real cycling thing. You know, really being
you have to match the socks to the shoes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
start that, mate. I always either
It's
just go white socks or black socks, and generally white wins. Generally, I go with white because I just think it looks better for racing. But
yeah.
I do love a white racing shoe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, to be honest, it does. Now I think about it, when I did used to cycle, because again, I didn't, I was poor at the time. I was at uni, so I just had I had a couple of versions of it, but I had black shoes into black socks, black shorts, black bib, and sorry, black bib, black shirt, and then I had a white cask helmet, and it had to be that way, man. It had to be white on top for like a little bit of something, and then the rest had to be like stealth mode black, and that was class. But yeah, I've been looking at too many Rafa Instagram
Yeah, the
highlights,
stuff's
but
pretty cool though. Yeah, the stuff's
it
class.
is pretty cool. But look, enough. That was our racing. I think we've been chatting about it for a while. Have you got anything you want to finish up on before we let the people go?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I was thinking about just now was sort of, I guess, what the next phase of my training will look like as I
Mm.
head to London. I spent a bit of time there at the start of the week, plotting it out on my Excel spreadsheet, which I'll now pop into Training Peaks and sync up with my watch and stuff. Um, so I've kind of designed out what I want the next, in an ideal world, what I want the next 5, 6 weeks to look like, and kind of now moving into a very specific phase of training where I feel like my general fitness is in a really good place, and I just want to add in a few specific workouts to get me marathon ready, really marathon ready. So I'm going to be putting a much bigger emphasis on recovery on my easy days. So I'm going to drop like most of the kind of steady runs, and where I'm getting down to like 6:20, 6:10 per mile on
Mm.
some of those runs. I'm going to drop those out of the training because I have been doing some sort of 10, 12 milers at that pace in and amongst the
Mhm.
training, and then really look to recover on those days and run really slow and put more emphasis on the actual workouts. So hitting some bigger workouts at marathon pace, or kind of in and around marathon pace. And that's kind of all I wanted to mention really, was I'm really feeling like I'm moving into that specific phase of training for the next 5 or so weeks. So I plotted that out at the start of the week, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're making your easy stuff easier, so you can, I guess, put more effort into the marathon specific stuff, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like this funnel if you think about it. And at the bottom of the funnel is your race, and at the outset of your training block, or just when you're far away from the race, the training's quite broad and quite general. And as you get closer towards your race, it's got to funnel down and become more specific. So I'm kind of like 3/4 the way down that funnel right now, and we're bringing all the training, the actual sessions here, the workouts, they're becoming more and more and more race specific as I get closer to the race itself. So the plan is to throw in some sort of longer sessions, where I'm doing not necessarily longer in terms of global volume, but longer reps at marathon pace. I'm going to increase the distance of the long run, I think, and just add in more specific work, which again I'm sure we'll talk about as the next few weeks progress, and touch wood everything goes well on that. So yeah, just making more, I suppose, more of a, people sometimes coin it like a more polarized approach. So really looking to recover on my easy days and not really get any, all I'm really getting from the easy days is mileage, as opposed to kind of like a really good aerobic stimulus. But it's really about recovery for those key workouts that'll
Yeah, yeah.
happen probably twice per week,
Mhm.
between now and marathon day. So yeah, I'm hoping that'll just bring me on a little bit more, and bring me on in a way that is specific to the marathon, as opposed to bring me on in a way that's just general fitness. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the path that I'm looking to follow between now and race day. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, because look, we're 6 weeks out from respective marathons now, so we are getting into kind of pretty close to crunch time. But yeah, I guess I'm not self-coach. Adam, you are self-coach, but David's still taking charge of my training, who I know also listens to the podcast. So what's up, David? But we're basically keeping a lot of the aerobic work and the easy work the same. Like there won't be any increases in volume, because I'm doing plenty at the moment, and I'm recovering fine. I think the main difference from what I can tell from the program is that, like you said, I've incorporated long runs. I'm doing more long runs on my Sundays, and there'll be some like marathon specific work peppered in there. Maybe not every Sunday, but maybe every other Sunday, because I know Sunday coming, so 2 days from now, I've got like a nice 28k again, just to practice getting some like gels in me and just running for distance. And then the week after, it's like 16k of 1k at marathon pace, 1k at kind of steady pace, or just like easy pace, which I'm really looking forward to actually.
Yeah, that's
again,
a great session.
Yeah, not massive mileage, but just I'm really looking forward to that one. So can't wait. So it's decent enough volume, but just I enjoy getting to go up to my marathon pace. I enjoy that big time. So
yeah, I actually have that session planned for myself. I just want to quickly just check the spreadsheet here that I put together the other day and see when I've planned that. Yeah, I've got that session planned for Tuesday the 15th of April. So pretty much my last big session pre-London is going to be 20k of on-off. So I'll probably look to run the Ks on just a little bit faster than marathon pace, and the Ks off a little bit slower than marathon pace, that kind of like over-under. I did it before in my block for London, but I overcooked that session and tried to run half marathon pace, alternating.
Yeah.
And it was just way too hard. Like, I put the Alpha Flies on, I got on the towpath, I tried to make it, not as easy as possible, but I tried to make hitting those splits a little bit easier, but that was just that session was just way too hard. That's what inexperience does. Especially when you're in the midst of a big training block at the back end of it. So this time I'm going to do the same session, but I'm going to just adjust it because I want to build efficiency, just dial it back a bit.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like I can say I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to chatting about it on the pod. But before we head off, aside from racing, anything planned for the weekend? Or running, I should say, not racing.
Yeah, so we're meeting a couple of friends tomorrow night for some dinner, and Sunday we're doing another group training session at Craigavon Lakes here. The same group that came down a few weeks ago are coming down again. Should shout out them, the Roadrunners crew that Noel McNally looks after. They were also racing on Sunday, so got a good catch up with them at the race, and they're coming down to Craigavon this weekend for another marathon session. So we're going to do 4x3 miles in and around marathon pace off, I think, a half mile or a mile float recovery, and I'll probably look to try to clock about 21 or 22 miles in total. So I'll just add on a warm up and cool down to kind of suit that, and that's the session. Yep.
Beautiful.
So looking forward to it.
Sounds
good.
What
about you?
Yeah, another quiet one for me. I think I've got my just me and the little one tomorrow, so Saturday, at least for the morning. So we'll get up to mischief, I'm sure.
Daddy daycare.
Yeah, nothing planned, but I think the weather's gonna be nice tomorrow. So I like to take him to the park. We kick around the football. Chill out, and then Sunday, no major plans. I think again, when you've got a kid, like, life revolves around the kid and how they're getting on. So every so often we'll have something planned, but a lot of our weekends we'll just see where the weekend takes us, see what we fancy doing, and go from there. And for the last weekend, my mum and her partner are staying with us, so yeah, it'll just be pretty low key. Hopefully the weather's nice, and yeah, happy days.
Lovely. Well, have a good one, mate. Enjoy.
Thank you, sir. You too. So look, guys, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. This one has gone on for a fair amount of time, so thank you for sticking with us. But look, as always, just wanted to thank you again. And before we actually leave, me and Adam are thinking of doing whether it's kind of next episode or a couple of episodes down the track, we are thinking about doing a bit of a Q&A one. So if you guys, I'm sure we'll put this on our socials as well, but if you guys ever have any questions, I know we've had a couple through at various stages, but if there's anything that's really kind of been on your minds and you want to ask us, feel free to send that through kind of Instagram. You can message us if you've got our personal details, and we'll try and get onto those in a future episode. But in the meantime, thank you again for tuning in. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, looking forward to chatting with you guys soon. Take care.